Hello, everybody. We are live and debunking the gram today. I'm joined by the marvelous Coach Zamo.
Hello, hello.
Who is a little bit camouflaged with our warm background because the rest of us is quite cold here. But Zamo, thanks so much for being in studio.
It's an absolute pleasure.
How are you doing?
Honored to be. I'm good. I'm just freezing.
It is cold. I've got a couple layers on here. But we're gonna drop some knowledge heat bombs today to try and warm the cockles a little bit. We decided to put this together because of all sorts of myths and misconceptions out there. We know nutrition's the space where this always happens because the neighbor's telling you something, you're reading something in the magazine, someone had this and that, and
someone said something on Facebook link.
Exactly, and that's what we're trying to break through. So we've got a few questions from you guys that we're going to go through, but please jump into the comments, let us know who's here, and if things come to mind and perhaps there's some other questions we can answer as we go through, we will.
Yes.
As you know, you've seen plenty of Zamo, one of our one-on-one coaches, doesn't take rubbish, cuts it like it is, and we're going to get some great insight from her and her experience and the way she coaches as well, and give you guys a little bit of insight to that. And from me, I'm just going to poke the bear with some nutritional thoughts and tips as we sort of go through. How does that all sound? Good?
I think it sounds fabulous. I got my list.
Nice.
I asked my questions. I did my research. I got into the social media mayhem of things.
A student here.
I'm ready. Ready to pass.
You're going to kick us off then?
I'm going to kick you off.
What's top of the list?
I got so many, guys. But my first thing, because it's winter, right? And people like warm food. And warm food is associated with potatoes.
Yes.
People always say, or I always hear like my clients are like, oh, I know potato is bad. Is potato the devil?
I love me a potato.
Oh, hallelujah. Thank you. So do I.
First need to put that out there. I really love potato. And it's one of those things. It's also the potato and sweet potato.
Oh, my word.
So I think we can get onto that as the sort of part B of the question.
Oh, yes.
But up front, potatoes. And I think the easy way to answer this, and most probably 20 other questions that might come, inherently, there is no one food that is bad for you. There's no one food that's good for you as well. As with most things, the poison is in the dose. So yes, a potato, if you ate copious amounts of it, might put you in an energy excess. But to be honest, it's actually quite hard to overeat on potatoes. They're not very dense in energy. You compare it to something like a more dense carbohydrate like some pasta or some bread, or you get much more energy in that than you do in a potato. It's relatively less dense. So you've got a little bit of leeway with a potato, in fact. So I wouldn't demonize it too much. I think they're great. Two things to remember. One, how much of it you're eating. We always remember that. If you're on club, you've obviously got some portion guides, and that's great. If you're one-on-one with your coach, you've got your portion guide. A simple one, about a cupped hand for your starches. For females, maybe 2 if you're males. You can start with that with your potatoes. And the second is how you're cooking it. That's going to go a long way.
That's the big one.
So I think where a lot of it came from was obviously chips.
Yeah.
And having fried chips or crisps in a packet, which were potatoes originally.
Yeah.
We can go wrong there because they soak up fat very easily. So if we're a bit more aware of our cooking method, we can consume them. Boiled, steamed, baked, fantastic. Air fried, do those. Keep the skin on as well. You get loads of fiber from the skin, a little bit better. And a sweet potato versus a potato, guys, pretty much exactly the same thing. One's not more healthier than the other. So based on pretty much what you want to eat, the flavor of it.
Yes. So we're all.
So make you a little bit happier.
Yes, because we're good for sweet potato and potato wedges. Yes. Okay. I love that. Okay. Now this next question, I've gone through both sides of it. So breakfast, right? For some of us, it's like one of those things, I can't eat that early depending on when you wake up and start your day. Is skipping breakfast detrimental?
This is a loaded question. It depends.
Fill me in.
A lot of things, it depends. So it all came out sort of, it must have been most probably 70s and 80s. It was breakfast is the most important meal of the day. A lot of that was pushed by Mr. Kellogg's and the crew, because they wanted to sell breakfast cereals. And that's where it kind of started. Interestingly, from most observational studies, people who normally eat breakfast tend to make better choices later in the day. They tend to have a better body weight. That's for people who are already eating breakfast. For people who aren't, and you make them eat breakfast, it doesn't actually seem to do anything better unless it improves your behavior elsewhere in the day. But if you wake up and you're not hungry, there's nothing wrong with not eating breakfast. Maybe you're only hungry at 10 o'clock. That's cool. Always the most important thing is going to be how much you eat in a day more than when you eat it. There's little nuance to that. And for some people, it can improve your sleep. It can improve perhaps how you're exercising. You can exercise a bit better if you're eating breakfast, or perhaps you can exercise a bit better if you aren't. And then it's okay. Focus on the bigger picture. Get that right before you worry too much about it. How do you coach it, Zamo, when someone asks you?
So generally for me, if somebody's like, they generally don't eat breakfast, I always start with, okay, let's do what you do and see how it works. And see how your body then adjusts. Because now sometimes if a person hasn't been eating breakfast or eating regularly, but they're now going to be incorporating exercise, then how is your body actually going to then respond to that? So that's generally my go-to. So yeah, that's generally how I see first what's happening. Are you maintaining good energy? Are you able to kind of make consistently good choices throughout your day if you are? And also, I think the other thing also, because I get a lot of questions about intermittent fasting. And is it good? Is it bad? Which is a whole other conversation that we're going to have. But it's also like, if you are starving yourself to a certain point, then it's not for you, is it?
No.
Thank you very much. There we go.
Not at all. And what I liked about, I think, your approach there as well is that there's not one answer. So if someone asked you, you'd say, well, let's see how it is with you, because how you respond might be different to how I respond.
Exactly.
And you won't know until you try it, and then you've got some good markers to assess it off. What's your energy like? What's your training like?
Are you snacking more?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where the magic lies, I think.
Okay. Yes, this is so good. I'm so excited. All right. Okay. Now the next one is, does it make a difference whether you have 3 main meals, or is it better to have 6 smaller meals? Like, what's that story?
So what I mentioned with the breakfast thing, I think the theme, what you eat in the day, most important. So if you eat the same amount over 3 meals or over 6 meals, your results, everything's going to be exactly the same. All right. But we typically, if you have a look at our plans and our menus, you'll normally see 3 meals and a snack. Now, that's based on a couple things. It's normally a little bit easier when you don't have to think about prepping 6 meals a day. It just makes
to eat 6 meals.
Exactly. The other thing, it also having 6 opportunities to get something wrong is a bit more risky than having 3 opportunities. So you've only got to focus on, if you just get 3 right, instead of now I've got to get 6 right. It means it's a lot that has to go into that. But guys, if it works for you to use the menus or the plans and break it up into 6, because lunch seems a bit big, so I'm going to split it into 2. It's totally cool. Biggest thing is always going to be how much it is in the day, and then you've got to fit that in with your life as well.
But you pulled at the cockles of my heart there with that 6 opportunities to get it wrong. Anybody got time for that? So, okay, 3 meals it is for me. Okay, so the next one is the say no to soda, pick juice instead. Why? Yeah, give me.
I suppose that was always, fruit's better for you, so have fruit juice over soda. So the problem is the quality of fruit juice as well. A lot of the things that are easily accessible to us really are most probably that much concentrated fruit juice and water.
Yes.
And if you have a look at the label at the back, the nutritional content and values are about the same what you're going to get in any other sugar sweetened beverage. So very high in sugar. And you lose a lot of the good things that are actually good in fruits, which is the fiber. Yeah. So the fiber and the liquid that you get with fruits is what helps keep you full. It slows how quickly that sugar gets into your body as well. And the vitamins and minerals that might have been processed when it was juiced is lost. In a whole fruit, you get that all. So it's fantastic. If you're going to choose whole fruits over fruit juice, it's a no-brainer. Soda versus fruit juice, guys, it's pretty much going to be the same thing. So it's one of those things we need to be quite careful for. The other day, it was actually yesterday, we were shooting some content on hidden sugars. One of my favorites are those little concentrated green juice shots. This is great for me because I get all my, but it's just a shot of sugar, really. That's all you're having. We need to be a little bit more kind of savvy to these little things of where they all creep in, because they'll get marketed to us, it'll get sold to us, but we don't actually know what we're taking. If we can get the whole fruit or the whole veg, always go for that. Be very careful on the little juices of various kinds.
I'm shooketh with the wow, okay.
Because they're a health food, right?
You know,
think they're good for us.
I hope you're all learning it, because I'm just like, I'm shocked. I also see some comments there about no roast potatoes in duck fat. No. No.
Exactly. Lesson learned.
Yeah,
it does taste delicious. And remember, there's a little caveat that underlies everything that we do as well. 20% soul food is how you stay on track. So the duck fat roasted potatoes is for that little part of your life when it just makes things a little bit easier. We've still got to nourish ourselves a little bit. You know, we're at Christmas dinner and we don't want to eat these things and feel like we failed.
Yes.
So it's still there to be enjoyed, but the smallest part of when you might enjoy them.
Good. Happy about that. Now, we were talking about sugar, those hidden sugars, right? But now sugar replacements. Okay, so now there's been this thread of that they cause cancer and all of these other things. What about it, sir?
It is. We did a talk the other day, and someone said, you know, I want to know how bad this Coke Light that I have is. Because a colleague at work had said that exact thing. It causes cancer and, you know, all of
these additionals.
So on a health side, they are safe for us. The things that are on the market, the sweeteners that are on the market, in terms of causing cancer, they termed generally regarded as safe. So the studies that they've gone through, the amount that you are going to consume normally is safe. Yes, if you go nuts and perhaps have 7 or 8 of these things every day, which we shouldn't be doing of anything really, perhaps we might not actually know what happens when you do that. So if you're consuming them in moderation, they're fine. When you're swapping them out for sugar, there's an upside, because if you're either going to have the 24-volt Coke or the one that is artificially sweetened, no sugar, it's much better for you. You're going to save 250, 300 calories just by doing that. Simple solution for one thing that you've done in the day. So yes, it can be a useful alternative when there's another sugar-rich meal. If you have it in moderation, it's going to be fine.
You're welcome. I think that one is an important one too. I mean, all of them are important, but there's certain ones that I know people are just like, please ask, please ask. So don't forget, if you do have any specific questions, pop them in here so we can answer them. When I'm not
anything in moderation is good, even the chocolate. Exactly. That's what that little 20% of your typical nutrition is for. Those little things that if you might have had that one piece of chocolate, you think, well, you know, I've bagged it up.
Yes, exactly. Might as well just go eat buckets of other things now because I've ruined it, which is not true. Love it. Okay. So excited. Okay, so now this one is personal to me. Okay. Please don't judge, depending on what his answer is. Okay, so low fat, no fat, better than full fat. Now, I'm a person that I do full fat milk. I don't drink a lot of milk and I measure it out. Don't judge me. But that's what I do. What do you say, Sue?
So it depends. Again, but I think dairy, this is mainly around dairy, really. I mean, that's where we get our choices for low fat, skimmed, pretty much, for dairy-based
skimmed
products.
Is a whole other situation.
Yes. Now, for most things, it'll depend on how much you're having. So like Zamo has mentioned a really good, she knows how much she's having of her milk or her yogurt. She chooses the full cream. She controls her portion. If you're not consuming a lot, we'll give you a quick breakdown of what the difference is. But a full cream dairy product, milk or yogurt, I'm not talking about creams and sour creams and all those sorts of things, but yogurt and milk is about 4.5 grams of fat per 100 grams. Low fat is about 2. So you're saving 2 grams in 100 grams. You're saving 18 calories by making that choice. If you're consuming a lot,
then
it's going to add up
to some
serious
if you're not,
is it worth the 20 calories that you think, well, I'm going to do low fat, I'm going to do skimmed, which is only saving me 30 or 40 calories and 100 grams, when I actually don't like that thing anymore. So you mentioned skimmed.
Yes.
I can't skimmed milk.
It's a joke. For me, it's a joke. I'm sorry. I can't do it.
So if you're controlling your amount, it's okay. And interestingly, a lot of studies as well show that the dairy that contains fat has many health benefits to it. The type of fats in there is not that bad for us. So if it's yogurt and milk, control how much you're having and choose which one you want to have based on the mouthfeel, the taste, what you kind of feel like. So it's really with the skimmed or the low fat where guys start playing around then, because now you don't have that mouthfeel. So they add other things to it. They want to thicken it with some corn flour or another thickener. And then because they still want it to taste nice, well, now they need to sweeten it, adding sugar because there's no fat in it. And you might not always be winning. So when you're going low fat, it's also just worth looking at the label to see what else goes into it. But with things like cheeses, cottage cheese, for example, having a low fat or fat-free option there is great, because now it's a very lean protein, where the one that has fat now might be 20 grams of fat per 100. Now it's big. Now it's a big choice to make.
But the thing I find with the cottage cheese, if you are going to low fat or fat-free, it tastes the same to me. Exactly. Whereas milk, for me, is very distinct, because you can taste like full cream milk has a little bit more sweetness in it. So I don't add any sugar or any sweetness or anything to it. But like the more diluted it gets, it starts getting a little bit iffy.
And maybe the more diluted, the more you end up having of it as well. Because you want to have that creaminess. But now if you're using the skimmed yogurt, you might have twice as much, because you're getting the same. And the full cream or even the low fat might fill you more than the fat-free version will. So it depends how it impacts other things as well.
I'm so excited. I love when my things come together, eh? Anyway, okay. My next one is about supplements, right? Because there's omega-3s, omega-6s, there's this, there's that, and that. Okay. So can you eat enough nutrients that you do not need to take additional supplements? Or is that then dependent on how your body digests things? Like what's the what on that?
For general health, yes. So, one of the myths that sort of stands behind that is that, foods these days don't contain the same.
Yes.
GMO, yes. Fruit and veg, plant-based, and that's where we get a lot of our vitamins and minerals from a plant-based nutrition, so our fruit and our veg and our beans and our whatever. And if we're eating those and we're eating enough for what our body needs, the chances are, if it's a varied diet, you're going to cover all of your bases, right? That also means tinned and frozen, by the way, which often we think that we lose nutrition out of that. We don't really. Frozen particularly, and it's one of those myths I like debunking, is it's most probably the best nutrition you'll get is, unless you've got the tree in your backyard and you can pick it, when it's frozen, it's picked and frozen right there. So it locks everything in. So it's something we can consume in our diet and use so that we still cover our bases. It's maybe when we start restricting our diet that we then think about supplementation. So maybe there's a food group that you've cut out. We chatted about dairy, and that means maybe you're missing out on calcium, and then something like a supplement becomes important. Or maybe you're following a carnivore diet for some silly reason, and then, yes, your vitamin and mineral intake is going to be too low. Or if you're actually just following a very low calorie diet, you're trying to lose weight, and maybe you're following, for example, on our light nutrition plan, where you're trying to get a weight loss goal, the longer you follow that, it might also mean that you're not quite covering all your bases, because you're keeping your intake quite low. So from a general health perspective, it depends if you're following a balanced diet, you're eating a little bit of everything, and things are all there, you should be okay. If you're cutting things out, you might need to watch out for it. Or if you've got a health issue, a deficiency that needs to be treated by a supplement, then it's needed. And that you'd get confirmed from a blood test or a consult with a dietitian or your doctor or something like that.
Okay. Cool. Happy with that one. Okay, now this one I hear a lot, and I fight about it a lot. But eating healthy is expensive.
Yes, it's a barrier that gets put up. So I want to eat healthy, but I can't afford to do it. So
excuse central, I think.
it is.
But anyway,
And I think if you guys have played around with any of our menus and recipes, and you don't see us throwing things out there like, you have to get wild caught salmon from the Scottish Highlands.
I would love some. Yeah,
we all would. I eat it every day, which would be great. And yes, it's healthy, but you don't need to do that. I've just mentioned tinned and frozen, which is an economical way to get really good foods in, and those are healthy for us. I think it's our concept of healthy that is misaligned, as opposed to thinking, the healthy foods for me are the expensive ones. They're not. Foods, any food that we're eating can be, brown rice, great option. Fantastic. Whole wheat couscous, it's cheap. Beans in a tin, fantastic. If you've had a look, I did a 20 ingredient menu a little while ago.
Yes.
And everything on there was healthy, but it was possibly one of the cheapest ways I'd eaten in a long while. And everything was still worked, and it balanced out, and it was delicious. Great. And we can still eat well without having to buy the expensive stuff. We don't have to get the chia seeds. We don't have to get the salmon. We can do some tinned and frozen. We can reuse ingredients, meal prep, and those things will go a long way to making your life a little bit more economical. Planning and preparing is where we save the money, more than making the food choices in the supermarket.
I love that, because also remember that saying: if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Exactly.
Some wisdom lesson. Okay. Right. Next one, which I've seen a lot of, carb cleaver. How clever is it?
Well, that speaks a little bit to, like when I said you take fat out of something,
yes.
They often add carbs. Now, the upside of that is that carbs are less dense in energy. So when you've taken fat out, you've removed a lot of calories. So adding a little bit of carbs, it can increase the energy. But when you've taken carbs out, and often a lot of the alternatives are a fat-rich thing. It's nuts or seeds or coconut or something like that. Go and have a look at coconut yogurt compared to a normal yogurt, and just have a look at the calories of one against the other. Have a look at your favorite granola versus a carb clever granola, which is just nuts and seeds.
Yeah, this is always my thing.
Yeah. Exactly. You think I'm being clever about it, but in fact, you must probably having to eat a third of the amount of the carb clever version
versus the other one
compared to the other one. If it's a carb clever thing that's vegetable based, fantastic. That's great, because you're eating more veg, you're saving on energy from the carbs. But it's kind of working off this myth of carbs being so evil for us, these range of carb clever things, where, like we said with the potato conversation, you can have them, just know how much to eat, and then it's fine. And you don't have to worry. And you don't have to also spend the money on the carb clever thing, which is expensive now. So,
I need you to help educate the gluten thing. Because I've had a few conversations, and no, not with my clients, so don't worry, guys, I'm not talking about you, but with people thinking that if they go gluten-free, it's less calories, or like it's going to help them.
Yeah.
What? Is this truth?
Yeah.
Because for me, I was like, no, is it not?
No. So the gluten thing is really all it is the flour that is in it is a gluten-free version of what would have been typically wheat-based. So maybe they've used a rice flour or a coconut flour or something. So all it's done is gluten is a type of protein that you get in wheat that some people are sensitive to, have gut issues with, and it became a popular diet a little while back because people cut out gluten, and what they were actually cutting out was bread and pasta and all sorts of things.
And then they thought gluten is the thing that's helping me lose weight, but this was not the truth.
They were just eating less food.
Yeah.
So that's why they lost weight. But it's not a weight loss approach. It's based purely on symptoms. For people who don't tolerate gluten, they need to find gluten alternatives. And there are other things on the market now. Those flours are typically a little bit more expensive to process. So that's why those products are more expensive. But you're not going to save any energy, any calories on a gluten-free option. Sometimes it might be more. I mentioned coconut flour, which is quite an energy-dense option. So that gluten-free thing might be a lot more. You might have a look at some of the wraps that are on the market that are made from coconut flour or a flaxseed flour or a nut flour. and they're actually much higher in energy than the gluten ones. So if anything, you might consume more calories by going gluten-free if you're not making wise choices.
I love this. Oh, brain is tick-tock-toeing here. Okay, so now this one, way back in the way backs of the way backs time when I was younger, not fully educated, didn't know what was going on. Out training a bad diet.
Yeah.
Some people still try it, but what's your take?
So this is a good one. I was chatting to some people the other day and I was talking about energy balance. Right, and we all know weight management is about energy balance, and I like to see it as a budget. So in the same way that you're budgeting your finances, the calories that you're getting in is the money that you're saving. You're banking it from the food that you eat. Where you spend all of that is on living, moving, exercising. Right. And most of where you spend your budget is just being. Right. So it's most probably 70 to 80% of your budget is spent on what your body needs just to do its daily things, away from exercise. Structured exercise is a fairly small component. A lot of you will track on your watch, what a session's like, and you might be burning 200 calories, 300 calories. If you're fairly big or male, it might be 500 calories in our typical sessions. You compare that to nutrition, and my favorite one is a burger, chips, and Coke. You combine those together, you must probably add over 1,000 calories in that meal. Try and work that off exercising compared to just not eating that and choosing something better
just don't eat
instead.
It, guys. I mean, how many burpees must one do?
It's hard. It's very hard to put in that amount of exercise where making a couple choices around your nutrition is going to carry a lot more weight for you. You're always going to get the most when both are aligned and you're exercising.
Balance.
You are. But if you're eating poorly, you're not going to outrun that at all.
Okay, no, yay. Oh, I love this. Okay, I want to ask you a question. Now that's not on the list. Have you ever had a point where you've kind of seen some of these food myths and you're just like, I've never actually thought of that? Or you're just thinking about everything, Adrian?
Quite often, almost daily. So
okay.
there'll be things that come up, and there might be some questions as well. And people think about something, and they might not actually break it down to think about it sort of logically.
Yes.
Why would something be bad for you? Or if you did this, why is broccoli, for example, the amount of protein? Broccoli being a great source of protein, and you'll read this and you think, geez, I'm going to eat more broccoli. And then you have a look at it, and it's, well, yes, I have to eat about 2 kilograms of it to get
2 days eating that broccoli to get that.
It is. Some people just will try and oversimplify, and really find the one solution that's really going to solve everything. And when you think about it, it makes things either harder or impractical to kind of get about it. But if you just take a step back sometimes and think, well, does this actually make sense? How or why would that work? For us with training, we can also think about, well, okay, we can understand the digestion of something and the metabolism of it, and it gives us the opportunity. But if anything, my primary role as a dietitian is a sieve of these kinds of information, because there's so much out there.
So much.
And it's just trying to disseminate things that are practical or logical and are actually factual, so that we don't get so caught up in it. But unfortunately, nutrition is that minefield that we do. We just, it's something that everyone has an opinion on.
Everybody. And the one thing also is you can go and, because Google everything these days, right? And then you go and you're like, oh, there was research done in this university, but you don't firstly look at how many participants and have they researched that in later, in modern time versus 19 what. And then they're giving you the research of then, but so much has changed now. So that's interesting.
It's being able to know where to find that information, because Google is a dangerous place.
From here, find it from here.
If you don't know what you're looking for and you don't know where that comes from, you can read a headline on a news media, they've maybe found a very poor quality article that was a research maybe in mice, and now they've said this, this holds true in human beings as well. And the latest sweetener causes cancer because when they gave a mouse 300 times its body weight of it, it did it. Now we're all scared. There's so much fear mongering out there, and I think we could all just chill out a little bit, and we'll be okay. At the end of the day, we'll all be okay.
You heard it here. I see Helen asked the question about, can you eat a burger and a few chips? What's a few? Because few question. Is relative, yes. But yeah.
Helen, that's what 20% of your nutrition approach is about. It's a soul food. It's having that, being able to have it, own it, and be okay with it and move on. If you have a burger and a few chips every day, problem. All right. If you have a burger and a few chips and a pizza and a milkshake, and your 20% of these things become 60 or 70%, that's where we run into problems. But being able to have it, know that there's inherently no one bad food. There's bad habits that build up, but that on its own isn't a habit. If you're doing it all the time, it becomes a habit, and then it becomes an issue. But if you can do it, pick yourself up the next day, not try and outrun it and think she's now have to exercise twice as hard because I had a burger and chips. You don't. You just have to carry on and do what you're supposed to be doing, and let it be.
Love that. Because my thing is also like, one meal does not outdo a week's worth of work. Because that's where sometimes people, a weekend can outdo a week's worth of work. Yeah. Let's get that straight. You can ruin a whole week with the weekend. But like one meal, because sometimes we have this thing of, like we were talking about earlier, where you have one meal that maybe is not according to plan, and then you're just like, right, here we go, ruined it, I'm done. Exactly. Meanwhile, you've had like how many days of being successful and doing
all
well.
Or nothing.
Yeah. No, not.
And that's what we don't want. And I know Zamo coaches that so beautifully as well, is understanding that it's not all or nothing. There's how you build that in is so valuable to getting up the next day and just being like, well, it's Sunday. I'm just keeping going.
Exactly. Yeah. What next?
Yeah.
Oh, no, yay. Oh, I'm loving this. If you guys have any more questions, please feel free to pop us those questions in the chat. But I'm really enjoying this, because also some of these things were also from me. I'm like, I think I know, but do I really know? So I'm glad that we actually have this platform to kind of ask these questions.
There was a question a little bit early on, wishing that organic meat was a little bit cheaper. It was organic meat and something else. You wish organic red meat was more affordable. So the thing with choosing good quality, and firstly, it doesn't really need to be organic. Organic is quite a difficult thing to produce and monitor and really worry too much about. I'm not sold on the organic trend with most things. In terms of our meat and our perhaps our eggs and chicken as well, I'd always try to choose free range, which isn't as hard to produce in the field as organic, so it won't be as expensive.
Yeah.
And chicken these days, pretty much free range is quite close to equitable with other things. So with chicken, that's a good option. With red meat, it's not always that easy to find grass-fed. If you can, that's great. If you can find any venison, which quite often is cheaper than red meat, it's a really good option to go for. But the thing about it is trying to put a little bit of your budget aside for better quality and eat less of it. It can be a smaller portion because you've chosen better quality when you do have your red meat. Listen, you're only having it maybe twice a week. If we're sticking to what we should be doing, red meat twice a week. When you have it, choose quality, eat less of it. The rest of the time, chicken, some fish, some tinned options, some legumes and beans, and that's where you can get your protein in from as well. So having some of it, buying what you can afford is fine, but just having less of it, I think is a good approach. Don't worry about organic. You don't really find it that easily anyway, but don't worry about organic, in my opinion.
Okay, another question I just thought up. Does it make a difference nutritionally if you eat let's say your steak well done versus medium versus blue?
With steak particularly?
Well, I'm going to go with that first. If you have more, you can tell me more, but I'm just, that's where my brain was going.
With things, as you cook them, you will lose some nutrition depending on the type of cooking that you're doing. Less so with meats,
okay,
but if we think about veggies, so that's what came to mind. Like the longer you cook it, And
the water changes color.
Yeah.
Things are happening.
If you're boiling it, everything's kind of going
like
out.
it's just,
You can keep, like, if you're quite prudent, you can keep that water and use it in a soup or a stew, or freeze the cubes to make your stock, and then you're not really losing as much. But the longer you cook something, the more nutrition you're going to lose. With meats and things, it's a little less apparent. But the only thing that changes apart from that is weight. So if you're tracking your intake, you might eat a smaller portion once it's cooked because it's shrunk, as opposed to when it's raw.
Oh, okay, cool. Now this one here, revealing my tomfoolery. I believed it when I had read it way back, but now I don't know so much because now I'm just questioning many things in my life. Rooibos tea with the antioxidants. If you drink it without milk, yay. When you add milk, it does something else. Is this a lie?
Yes.
Have the milk, guys. It tastes better with milk anyway. What is it? Is it a lie?
So that's a good example of something I have not heard before. I can't think of any reason why the milk would impact.
See, I even stumped him with my buffoonery. It was a whole entire lie. I believe it. I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to drink this rooibos, and I don't like things without, like, I don't like tea or coffee without milk in it.
Yeah.
But I was like, I need these antioxidants, so I'm going to drink this brown rooibos and I can have it with milk.
Have it with milk.
Life made. You're welcome, everybody that also believed that. And if I told you this lie, I apologize. I didn't know. Okay, I didn't know. Now we all know better. I mean, I can't even remember where I even heard that thing, but I know that I heard it was a whole situation. So see, guys, what happens when you're on social media and people tell you lies.
These are the types of questions, guys. Pop them into the comments. Anything we haven't got to so far, now we'll get back to. There's the last one here I'll take on seafood like crabs and prawns. Your take on it? Fantastic lean proteins. They're really good. Prawns and shrimps particularly, very, very low in fat. So most of your seafood's quite low in fat, which is great. So use them. They are also quite economical as well. You find them frozen. They're good options to have. Crab sticks, not so much. There's not a lot going on there. But other than that, those kinds of seafoods are really good for you.
What is crab sticks made out of? Because something tells me there's no crab in
all sorts of things. Very little crab.
Oh, so there is some crab. I always just thought it's a stick of nonsense.
A stick of nonsense is a good. It's the polony of the seafood world. No, it's not as bad. But, yeah.
Okay, no, I just me and crab sticks, we are not friends. I actually don't even like crab. I'm not gonna lie. No offense, please don't go crazy. But crab sticks, I look at it and I'm just like, I don't trust you. Yeah. Something shady.
Crab curry, my favorite. Someone said there, which is fantastic.
Send Uber Eats me some. I'll taste it and maybe I'll like crab.
Maybe we'll add it. We'll add it to the recipe bank. Why not? Guys, thanks so much. I think that's all we've got time for today. We went on a little bit longer because it was such a great chat. And Zamo led that fantastically. Hopefully you've learned a little bit. If there's anything more, please send us a message. If you want to know a bit more, find out a little bit more perhaps about how Zamo approaches us with her coaching as well, reach out to us. That's what we're here for. Hopefully you've learned some things and had a good lunchtime chinwag.
Yay! Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for giving my buffoonery.
Cheers, guys.